Oh God, Bin Laden's
3,
gonna use the
2,
car.
1. We are live. Welcome to the Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Cohn. Joining me today is Alejandro and potentially Bilal, if he could figure his shit out for once. Turns out the whole infrastructure in South Africa is kind of fucked.
Oh yeah,
So the power went out.
yeah. That happens in places
Yeah,
like South Africa
crazy.
and Mexico.
Yeah. So he's going to maybe do it in his car. Um,
Yeah, if the
and then,
demons are not too much.
yes, correct. Listen. Normally, our episodes are kind of like, you know, think of this like an anime. We have our canon episodes, the manga. We have our mixed filler and canon episodes. We have our mixed anime canon and manga episodes. And then you just have plain filler. This is filler. We're
Yeah,
not
this
gonna
is
lie. We're
filler.
not gonna sugarcoat it. This is filler. This is the filler arc. There's basically been nothing going on other than the PFL, so I guess we can kind of shout out the winners for that. I believe it was PFL 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, an
Uh,
Argentinian dude won. That's all
oh,
I care about.
I
Oh,
mean,
and Kayla Harrison did one.
we do need to shout out like some of those guys because some of those and the ladies too because they actually headlined. Um, we had Kayla Harrison win again. She's 7-0. This was, by the way, this card took place December 31st of 2019, and she was headlining the card actually against Kayla Harrison. She rematched Larissa Pacheco, destroyed her as was expected. Didn't finish her, but destroyed her. 7-0 at 155. I don't see anyone stopping her from that because it's women's 155. But
Yeah,
she won $1 million, so good for her.
and she can do double leg takedown.
Yeah, she's really good. Yeah, she could do double legs. She's better at judo than Ronda. So,
Yeah,
uh, Ray Cooper the third knocked out TKO David Mashad to win $1 million. I think sounds like it. I think this was a
yeah.
million, right? Yeah, that was $1 million. He's now a millionaire. And then you had Ali Isaev defeat Jared Rosholt via out wrestling him too, which was really, really impressive. I mean, he was expected to, but at the same time, it was still immensely satisfying to watch Jared Rosholt just completely out wrestled. I'm not gonna lie. If you're yelling in the background, that's because my son's insane and causing my wife to lose her shit.
No, I mean she's working. Okay, like
Yeah, she's
sometimes kids don't listen.
this is crazy. Then you had Nathan Schultz just take out Loic Radzabov. I'm not going to try. Lance Palmer decisioned Alex Gilpin, and he just beasted on him. This was a rematch. I think Alex Gilpin was a replacement for the actual finalist. And this was honestly like the Lance Palmer is a dude we need a shout out because this guy is on a like 10 or 11 fight win streak now. Um, I should mention he's already beaten Alex Gilpin twice, and Gilpin had nothing for him the other two times too. But Lance Palmer looks phenomenal. Like he left World Series of Fighting 11-3, and he's lost one every fight since then. He's beaten Steven Siler twice. Gilpin is also a pretty solid fighter. He's just been on a tear, and the dude is smart because I think this is his second PFL tournament that he's won already. So, shouts to him. Like this dude is just killing it. So,
And made a bunch of money. So
yeah, I mean that's $2 million, I think. Well, sorry, he won the
no,
PFL.
$1 million and
One. It's
oh,
$1 million, and he won the second tournament too.
yeah. And
So,
Gordy is from Argentina, so I root for him.
so
Yeah.
and then we had Emiliano Sordi TKO Jordan Johnson in the light heavyweight division. So Jordan Johnson, I don't know if any of you remember, former UFC fighter. He actually went undefeated in the UFC, and he's actually lost twice since joining the PFL. He lost, but he moved up it's weird because he dropped to middleweight, looked great, and then went back up to light heavyweight for PFL. And he's not an especially big one either. He's 6'2", but he's not like thick, I would say. It's very odd that he dropped and went back down up. I don't get it really, but must not have felt very good. But anyway, that's the PFL. So let's shoot the shit, huh?
Let's shoot the shit.
All right.
Let's repeat what you already said first. First.
Yeah.
It's about the Conor thing.
Yes. Okay, so before the podcast recording began, we were talking about the Conor, an article that was posted on Bloody Elbow. Basically, in a nutshell, that Conor McGregor should be suspended for his conduct outside the organization. Did I sum it up? Or should I elaborate that? I mean those 2 sexual assault / rape allegations against him in Ireland.
No, I think it's very well known by now.
Well, how loud are they?
Oh,
Bilal!
Bilal is here.
Dilo!
What's up?
Holy shit, you are
Demons. That's what-
choppy. Try again.
What?
Try talking.
Oh shit! I don't think we can hear him.
Can't hear him.
Ah crap!
Bilal, this is why you shouldn't live in South Africa.
Yeah, because people can just leave.
Yes, they can. He can travel to Mexico and live with you.
Well, he doesn't want to do that. Trust me. He's safer where he is.
Move. Hello. Hello. Odds keeps telling us how chill Sweden
How
is.
bad is it?
It's pretty bad, bro.
I don't know. Fuck off. Angry who fight it.
And you are just a choppy mofo right now.
I think I would Harry
Because the
Hook.
listeners have the scab at the select the sponges.
I don't think you can hear us because you can't hear that we're telling you that you are basically unintelligent.
Yeah.
Can't understand a word you're saying, bro.
Yep.
And he's gone again.
Yes, he's gone again. Anyways, you were going on about the Conor thing.
Yes. I'm pretty sure I summed it up decently well. That Conor, the article said that Conor should be suspended. Now,
Sweden.
What?
Bilal, we can't hear you or understand you.
It's a tragedy.
And even when we do hear you, it's kind of like
The demons. They live
Okay.
in South Africa.
Just listen. Maybe your service will improve.
I know. Shit was weird when like the barbers have.
Something with barbers?
Nope. Bilal, we're not doing this. You will be muted until your shit improves. Don't unmute yourself until you're ready to use Wi-Fi. Just listen. And that way you could follow along and hopefully join. Also, you could just type in the chat and then say what you want to say. And we'll repeat it what you want to say. I promise you I will be accurate. I'm not joking. Unless it's stupid. Then I might make fun of you.
They will lie.
Yeah, no, we'll lie and we'll make fun of you mercilessly. Alejandro's really good at it. He's a teacher. So
No, I don't. I didn't make fun of my students actually.
you do. Not in class, but you do.
Not really. No.
Are your students actually smart and good?
They were actually really good.
Fuck your students. They suck. They made your
No,
life.
they were okay. Listen, like these were kids. Look, I was teaching the course in English, so there's like a massive filter. So by the time they get there, it was like I think for semester, like physics class. So they were kind of in line. Like, they were good. Like for the most part, yeah.
Fine. Your students rock. Sorry.
Or they didn't rock, but they were okay.
You're not going to compliment them. You're going to be like super neutral. You're like Switzerland. Whatever. We're like Hitler, not Hitler, whatever. Everything's fine. We're just going to stay neutral. Okay, so again, the article basically said suspend Conor for his conduct, i.e. the sexual assault / rape allegations in Ireland, the 2 cases against him at the moment, or that he's a suspect in. Here's my take on this, and, I don't agree. The problem with it is not that the UFC is inconsistent, and it has to do with him being a star. It has nothing to do with that in my eyes. In my eyes, you have the UFC, which and it's not just the UFC, I believe it's all MMA organizations that do this.
Yes.
All the fighters are listed as independent contractors. They are not employees. Okay. Now, with that, they lack certain benefits of employees. Okay. If you want to suspend a fighter who is an
Meaning
employee,
all the benefits, by the way.
all the
They lack
benefits
all
of
the
being an
benefits.
employee, they lack all the benefits of an
Not
independent
just certain,
contractor.
all of
An independent contractor, if you suspend them and if you refuse to work with them, will be able to say, okay, if you don't want to have a contract with me, I will go to another organization in your field and I will ply my wares there. Okay?
Yes.
Great. If you're an employee and there is something going on, there's, in this case, I guess, if you want to use the exact same examples, there are 2 pending sexual assault / rape allegations, pending charge, whatever, no charges that have been formally filed or whatever it is, but there are investigations where you are a suspect. And your employer says, I cannot, you're a high level employee. I can't have you representing us. I'm going to suspend you, but there are certain guidelines for how that's done. And if I'm not mistaken, they would have to suspend you with pay. All right. Now, because they can't just not pay you. So unless they fire you, in which case you could probably file a wrongful termination lawsuit, if I had to guess, unless there are specific things in your contract. But again, those are employee-employer relationships where you might have a contract with specific stipulations for certain things like this. The UFC does not have that at all. There's no stipulations for this kind of shit. They have like a fighter code of conduct, which whatever. It's just whenever they need to apply it. So you have a massive corporation, right, that has the power to basically do whatever they want to their independent contractors, quote unquote. I don't agree with the idea of calling for the abuse of that power, even in cases where you might, on a moral level, agree with it, where you're like, yeah, this person should technically be suspended. But at the same time, you're like, what? Okay, so why would we want them to exercise their power over fighters just because we might not like or a specific situation or a particular fighter and have an issue with them? From an ethical standpoint, in my opinion, you cannot pick and choose your quote unquote fighter. You can't pick and choose your fighter. Pick your fighter. You can't just pick and choose. This harkens back to a prior conversation that I think Bilal, Alejandro, and I were having, where it was with regards to Colby being screwed by the UFC.
Which he was.
Right. Which, again, I don't think he was screwed in any way, shape, or form more than the other fighters were screwed in the UFC, but that's a different issue entirely.
Well, it depends if you take
the issue was, do you feel bad for Colby? No, I did not. But I also was not going to advocate for him being fucked over by the UFC because that's just the abuse of power by the UFC. Same thing here. If Conor was suspended by the UFC pending the assault, pending the investigations, would I feel bad for the guy? No. He's insanely rich. He's got his whole whiskey business. Nothing's happening to him. He's still doing whatever he wants, basically, clearly. Why would I feel bad for him? But I also would say, hey, this is an abuse of power by the UFC, and I'm not cool with it. So that's my take on it. I don't agree with the concept of just, we don't like this is happening, therefore we want them to suspend. Then there was the other points of they could do the independent investigation, and the point was brought up that there's really no actual tangible evidence available. It's in Ireland, they keep everything on the completely covered until the investigations are complete and charges are filed. That's my understanding of it. It's not like the U.S. At all, where you can get publicly available information much more. This kind of information is publicly available much quicker, much more easily. And there was the New York Times article, but again, those were leaked stuff. So that's how we know it was McGregor who was actually named as the primary suspect, if I'm not mistaken, in those cases. But that's still not enough because, again, it's not official. So even then, like the argument that the UFC should conduct an independent investigation of what? There's no charges filed. There's nothing to really look at. There's nothing to investigate. You could read the New York Times article and then just say, I guess we should suspend him or we're not going to suspend him over this. And again, then it comes into play that McGregor's a money-making machine, and of course the UFC is not going to suspend him. So while that's the morally bankrupt reason, that's just an obvious reason because they don't really care about any of the shit other than money. So Conor's making the money, they're not going to suspend him. Period. If it was Joe John Van Derkind or whatever, and it was random dude on prelims who had 2 rape assault allegations against him, yeah, they're gonna just say like, no, you go fight in Bellator or whatever.
There was a case actually about Abdul Razak Al Hassan. You remember him?
Yes.
He has a similar problem.
What wasn't he? Was he convicted?
No, he was allowed to fight.
Oh, right. He was allowed to fight, and then I think the charges were formally filed or something like that, and then they dropped him.
Yeah. No, I don't think they have dropped him, but he's in the freezer right now. He's not doing much. Okay, so is that all you wanted to say?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, so I don't have so much as a rebuttal, but a fucked up answer to that. And the fucked up answer to that is that you don't have to, right? But it bears mentioning that we can look at this thing in terms of the history and the standard that has been set, not just for the organization, but for the sport as a whole. So if you're having problems about abuse of power and abuse, like taking extra steps, that can affect fighters, I hear you and I don't disagree. In fact, I agree with you on principle, but the truth is that we're kind of late for that because we are already watching the UFC, which is a company that has fucked up fighters' careers, that forces them to adhere to a schedule that is insane. Like, ask Justin Gaethje. Like, they have made requests of him. He has denied them for A, B, C, or D. And, these are like that have not been injury, okay? But it puts him at odds with the promotion, right? So what do? They screw him and then they move on. And that's the standard. You look at the way that drug tests have been handled, right? They screw fighters horribly, and we still watch them. That what happened with Josh Barnett, right? Like, he had to go to arbitration, and he's one of the only few people that can afford to go to arbitration to have his case heard. And he was cleared of all charges, but it costed him a ton of money. So, like he pretty much got dropped by the UFC after he requested. Then you have cases like a bunch of other fighters that have been cleared after they revised their guidelines. But what these people do, like, they put fines on you. And if you want to go to arbitration, everything goes on your dime. So fighters are already getting screwed there. They're getting screwed on their deals. They're getting screwed everywhere.
Yes.
Right? So that is what the sport is built upon. Like, it's just this predatory.
Yes, they are built on a system of exploitation.
Yes,
and
massive
right.
exploitation. And
so where are you going with this?
So my point is that how come this is the thing that breaks the camel's back? Like, well, we cannot have the UFC, like, for starters, if you go by the standards, they have already enforced this once. On Nate Diaz, when he used the word, quote unquote, I'm going to use the full word, faggot on Twitter, right? So he used that word, and then they fell on him, and they not only did they, I don't think they suspended him, but they did fine him. And this came during a period when they were trying to get.
Just to interject briefly, they said they fined him. There's no evidence he paid any fine.
True, but but that's where we get to the whole hypocrisy of this, because why can't they just say they are suspending Conor? And even though, because then he can fight and then he can make money.
Thank you.
But what if they just said something, or we are waiting for the authorities in Ireland to ABC or D, like they haven't said anything?
Because acknowledging it gives it power, and the UFC has zero interest in doing that.
Yes,
number one. Number two, nobody said this is the straw that. So I'm gonna just explain it from the perspective of, like, I'm gonna use Jewish shit. I don't know how else to explain that. Jewish shit as a way of explaining as an example, and I'll use that to extrapolate. So, according to Jews, Orthodox Jews in particular, let's say I'm doing something wrong, and in that particular period of when I'm doing something wrong, Oh, I'll give a perfect example. Let's say I decide, you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm going to eat non-kosher food. And I go and I eat, a cheeseburger from McDonald's, right? And then I'm like, I ordered a fries too. After I eat the cheeseburger, I feel terrible. And I decide, you know what? I'm not going to eat the fries. And I leave. All right?
All right.
Each individual piece of food that I was putting in my mouth is another sin. Right? So when I stop, the sin stops. Right? When you're the UFC, right? When we're fans watching the UFC, we don't have to say, well, they've done all these other things that are fighter exploitation. Why? Might as well just say, okay, do whatever if we agree with it. I don't agree with that concept. Like, no, we should be upset about each and individual exploitation that we're seeing.
Yes, but
we should protest it. Hold on, and we should protest it, and we should show them that we don't agree with it. Now, don't get me wrong. I refuse to buy UFC 246. I will not support them because of the fact that Conor McGregor is headlining that card. Mm-hmm. I will not give them my money for that card. But I also disagree with the concept of, because they've already exploited fighters, because they constantly do it, might as well let them exploit it in a way which we might personally agree with.
No, but it's not about letting. No, I hear you, but
I'm saying...
I hear you.
If we had the choice, right? If we could say, do it or don't. Obviously, they're not going to. There's no way they're suspending Conor. So This is not really a debate on them doing it or not. It's if they should. So I'm talking about an if they should scenario. I do not agree with that because I don't think allowing us to kind of just be like, well, we'll let it slide this once. I don't agree with it. Now, with regards to the Nate Diaz thing, somebody actually did address it in the comments board because that was requested. I think somebody said something about Nate. Might have been you. Nate did it publicly on Instagram. It's not like you could deny it or say like there's a pending investigation. He posted it on Instagram where everyone could see it, and the UFC has sponsors to worry about. So, and I think this was around the time they were trying to book.
But you're bringing the sponsors. Okay. First of all, let me just say something. Like, you have to stop interrupting me because you gotta.
I was trying to finish. That's all.
Okay. Yes, but you took on my time, so you let me get this thing through. Like, you say sponsors. Like, the way these things work is like it's not about whether there has been any legal implication, like significant legal implication, because there is no legal implication right now that is binding in any way, shape, or form, because all of this is happening in Ireland, and the rules over there say that everything you hear that comes outside of the legal process is hearsay. Like, even if it's leaked, even if there's like substantive argument over there, like it has no legal binding of any kind. But that is not how these things work. These things work.
Wait, can you guys hear me?
Measures, we can hear you.
I can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so they work. They work in
a way.
Hold
on, Bilal. Let Alejandro finish, please. Sorry.
My bad.
Yeah, so they work in a way that these are punitive measures. Like, they don't have legal binding. Again, you're saying like they just put this thing in public. Like, what's the legal binding that he has? Like, is this his freedom of speech that is at risk here? Because they actually say that they charge him money for using a bad word in a public platform. You see, like, it has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with whether it's good for the company or not. And when you adhere to sign that contract, you adhere to the rules and stipulations of that quote unquote code of conduct that we agree that we would have no problem if it was applied fairly. We know it's not. Okay, so when you take all of these things like in concert, like the way that we're already watching and taking part in sort of propping up this sort of contraction of exploitation already, like I hear you, and we should argue against all of these things, but it's not that easy when you have everything, like every single thing we do. Like, think about this. Like, we put out a podcast talking about a product that we know exploits people every day, and we're
Right.
using the same platform to argue that no, but this thing we shouldn't. No, and I'm not saying that you're making a mistake. But I'm saying that's a very complex issue, and that it's not dismissible. Like, to say no, they should fine him, or, well, not fine him, but suspend him. Well, yeah. I mean, what do other sports organizations do? If you have like an athlete that is embroiled in a legal problem, like, they suspend him, or at least sit him down and say, okay, let's wait for this thing to finish. Like, they're not gonna do this because this is fighting. And fighting, there's a long history of bullshit that happens in fighting. But if the UFC is trying to present itself as, quote unquote, the NFL of MMA, like, that's not gonna fly. Like, what they're doing right now it's not gonna fly. And
Bro, they're on
now,
ESPN, and ESPN is totally okay with it. So you're saying it's not going
yeah,
to fly. It's clearly flying totally fine.
you know what? That's a good point. That is a good counter argument. I'm wrong. You're right in that aspect. But even if we're saying, well, the promoter, no, like, the overall broadcaster has no problem with this, at what point do we say we don't have a problem with it either? Well, I mean, we have a problem, but still, like, it's personal, like, in general.
You
Because
show
of
you
all
have a
that.
problem. Listen, the only way to show you have a problem is um, not buying it.
Yeah, but the problem with
Don't buy it. And Bilal's gone.
that most people know about with Conor happen to be hardcores, which is like 200,000 people maybe.
Yeah,
Vast
I
majority
think that's
don't
also a
either,
point that
they
needed
either
to be
don't know
stated.
or they don't give a shit.
Yeah, they most of them, honestly, I think I've probably heard about it and don't give a shit. Honestly,
Yeah.
I really think it's more like the people who follow him for sure have heard about it, but I honestly think people don't give a shit. Now, from people who live in Ireland who are like on MMA Twitter and stuff like that, like, it seems like there's a lot less interest for this fight among Irish fans, and specifically like in and around the Irish MMA community or the
Yeah.
local, than there have been for other his other fights. So it seems like Conor's shenanigans seem to be actually affecting his fan base, or at least his
Yeah.
popularity.
I
So
did
Well,
read about
like,
it a little
That's
bit.
a little
Um,
strange because, like, for a while, even before it became like the leaks got out about all the stuff for everyone else, online at least, it seems like his fan base in Ireland has been dying down a little. It's mostly been like the fans everywhere else that have been building up,
pretty
at least
much.
online. So,
Yeah, I mean, this whole situation's fucked if we're being honest, but yeah, I really think that it's something I wouldn't, yeah, I mean, I guess I pretty much said everything I needed to say. Any other things you guys want
yeah.
to add to this?
the
No,
UFC's
no,
not going to do
no.
shit unless it hurts them financially.
Yeah, there's no way. That's my son.
Hola.
Can we just point out how adorable it is that he's going, Daddy?
Yeah, I was
And then
thinking,
you're
like,
just
that's
ignoring him.
My wife is supposed to be taking care of him right now. Where is she?
Oh,
Well,
look, just like trying to push blame to your wife.
Chris. Well, you know what? Podcast time is my time. What topic would you guys like to discuss next in this anime filler episode of MMAngst podcast? Just bring him to the room because he's standing up. Bring him to the room and put him in and let him watch TV.
Can he talk?
To be
already?
honest, the only thing recently that has been bothering me is that, like, I don't even
Daniel,
know
sit.
a topic we can talk about, but, like, has anyone found it weird that, like, Henry Hooft, his strikers like Rumble and MJ tend to have loopy punches, whereas his wrestlers who have much shittier striking have, like, crispier punches?
You mean straight punches? You say it. Straight punches.
Yes, straight punches. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's been bothering me for like a day now. I don't understand it.
I think it's personal. It's a personal choice, honestly. Like, Usman likes to throw straight punches, and the looping punches he throws tend to be body shots for the most part.
Yeah, but that makes sense. But like,
Well,
The
let's go.
strikers
Wait,
coming out of that camp
hold on.
always have loopy punches.
Hold on. Let's go through it. Let's pick 3 wrestlers you're referring to, or 3 grapplers, and then let's pick 3 strikers you're referring to, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so Gilbert Burns,
Grappler.
Kamaru Usman, and what's dude's name? Michael Chandler. All have really crispy straight punches, but aren't really like best strikers out of that camp. And
Okay.
like on the striker side, at least the ones that have been constantly sitting in my head have been Vicente Luque, Michael Johnson, and Rumble.
Michael
all
Johnson,
of
he
them-
throws straight punches constantly. What are you talking about? In fact, his 1-2 is like
No,
the
even
most
his
common
straight-
punches.
He uses
Yeah,
both.
but even his straight on the 1-2 isn't like as straight as like, let's say the punch that Usman knocked out Covington with. It has like a weird loop to it, just as how Ferguson always has like a weird loop to his punches, even when they're supposed to be straight.
Hold on. Well, Anthony Johnson makes perfect sense. He's working to land big counter strikes. He's an aggressive counterpuncher, so that kind of makes sense to me. Vicente Luque also, he works a lot of counter shots in, but his straight punches are straight. I don't necessarily agree with Vicente Luque, and his cross counter is kind of like his best punch. So kind of makes sense that he'd be throwing these looping straight cross counters over the top of his opponent's strikes. And Michael Johnson, I mean, he kind of throws his straight punches, I would say, more like leaning into them. When he throws off the back foot, he's kind of got straight punches. It's also very possible that when he was dealing with wrestlers, he's building them up from the ground up. So we'll see them be a lot more rigid in their movements, which I think is something that we can say about a lot of his grapplers turned strikers, like Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, for example. Up until recently, the last few fights have been extremely wooden, or like lacking fluidity is a better way of saying it.
Michael Johnson?
Well,
No, not Michael Johnson. Kamaru
that's
Usman.
up on the ground up.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, but he's kind of wooden anyway.
No, but like whenever you build someone from the ground up, especially with their striking tool sets, they always do come across as a lot more wooden. But by like build up, I mean like actually, focus on the technique and stuff. Because like let's maybe compare to how AKA does it, where their level of striking isn't really close to on par at the highest level with Wolf's guys. But they are a lot more fluid because they're just like, fuck it, go learn in sparring, bang it out.
Buying it out. That's what I tell my wife every day.
What?
What?
What? Move on. Moving on. Moving on. No, okay, couldn't.
I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have to apologize for that.
Well,
No. Couldn't it be Bilal? Couldn't this be that there is like something that bothers you, and maybe you're looking a bit too much into it, because it's not like what you say. Like I at least I don't remember Vicente Luque or Michael Johnson like throwing more looping punches than they throw straight punches. Like maybe that's one thing they're focusing on a bit too much.
No, they throw a shit ton of loopy punches, and it like bothers the fuck out of me because like the grapplers and the wrestlers might be more wooden, but like their straight punches are like really straight.
Well,
it's like
that's kind of like a problem with MMA boxing in general, where. Well, yes, but in MMA, like, what? Wait, demons?
Oh, God.
Okay, I'm gonna shut up. You keep talking because I think that maybe.
No, go on. I finished talk. I finished talk.
Okay. No, what I'm saying is that in MMA, like a bunch of like things that are meant to be straight punches are actually weird loopy punches. Like Ben was talking about cross counters. Like cross counters are like in response to a jab, right? Like, and they are usually, at least in boxing, they come in straight fashion. Like, we're accustomed to looking at them in boxing in straight fashion. But in MMA, you see a ton of these things thrown like looping, like, or they look a bit like they follow an arc, even though maybe they're not meant to be that way, like a lot of the times. But maybe like you're focusing on it. There's like a pervasive problem in MMA that you see and you don't like, but it's not like it's more prevalent in pure strike people that are mainly strikers with hoofs. Like maybe it's just something that you saw and like that bothers you.
But
You know what I'm saying?
it's Henry fucking Hoofed. It's like the guy clearly can teach his strikers to like punch straight. It's not like we're talking about like, I don't know, Javier Mendez or
But
something.
they punch
Where
straight.
like
They
no one knows
but they
pressure
do punch
footwork.
straight. But they do punch straight. The problem is that a lot of it has to be the predilections of fighters. Like take for example Kamaru Usman. Like maybe he just concentrates on getting good at this particular thing. Like I want to throw straight punches. Like he even brags about it. Like once he knocked out a guy, he was saying like he doesn't throw looping punches. He throws straight punches. There's an interview flying somewhere like floating somewhere where he says that like he's working on throwing straight punches like specifically. So
But
it has to do a lot with predilections, I guess. Like I don't think it's that something that he does with wrestlers and like strikers. I think it's just like who Usman likes to throw straight punches.
Also, it
why
could
the
just
fuck
be.
is he
Hold on.
offended?
It could hold on. It could be that they're also Usman is also a pressure fighter, and using those long straight punches to back his opponents up to the cage wouldn't be a terrible idea.
No, it's a good idea.
With Rumble, he's not trying to get them to the cage to wrestle them. He was trying to knock them out.
He's not trying to set you up. Yeah.
If you're a striker trying to get around the guard of your opponent using those kinds of strikes, it kind of makes sense. If you're just using your strikes as a way of initiating grappling, that also makes sense.
Yeah. But I don't see
bothers
like
the
a
fuck out of me. Although
issue
like
with hoofs.
I will say Ben's point about the strikers tending to like to counter makes sort of sense with the loopy punches.
I like how you
But
say
like it's still
like you're
bothers the
like
fuck out of me.
you're like Ben kind of makes sense, but I refuse to give him full credit, so fuck him.
Yeah, fuck you, Ben.
Oh God.
Oh, yeah. Will that go away at some point in MMA? Like the whole loopy punching thing. Will that some point go away?
No.
Like, will there come a time? Is it because of the gloves, or like because they're too small and they present like a tentative target? Like, or like the area around them presents such a like a juicy target that people are just not going to ever move past it.
No, I think it'll always be there just because the amount of skills you do to learn limits the amount of time you can spend learning each skill. So like there'll always sort of be a cap unless you are a hyper specialist.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was gonna say like people like Rose or Joanna, like they have really like crisp, straight punches, but they may be like, but it implies like a funneling of skills, right? Like get good at what you're good at, and then they just develop a shit ton of defensive techniques, or
yeah,
you know, yeah, like everywhere else, so that you can just keep doing what you do, and that's when you're gonna get the nice crisp punches that you like so much. But everywhere else is gonna be like, here's a straight, here's a straight, right, and it's like an overhand.
yeah. I mean, like I've thought for a long time now. I've considered that to be the direction MMA is heading, rather than the old myth about the good everywhere fighter. Just because like the way matches play out is that you can be good everywhere, but you'll still be limited by whatever style you choose to employ, whether it be against someone who does, let's say, your preferred thing just better, or someone who can take advantage of it. Uh, like Rory Mack versus Robbie Lawler is an excellent example because Rory is good everywhere, but clearly prefers striking, and he got matched up with a guy who has I mean, if we're honest, like lackluster offensive wrestling and grappling, but really good defensive wrestling, at least like the initial layer, not particularly deep as we saw again. But he's a much better striker, and he sort of got not blown out of the water, but like you could see his limitations in that fight.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
know
also
what
just
that
a
makes me
lot easier
think?
to.
Oh, okay, keep on.
It's a lot easier to raise a fighter like as a hyper specialist than it is that's good everywhere.
I mean, it
You were
depends
saying?
on it depends on which. It kind of depends on which camp they're coming from, though. Because if the camp specializes in creating well-rounded fighters, I don't really agree. Because we look at a camp like TriStar, and they're pretty good at creating all-rounders. Actually, Arnold Allen being the latest incarnation of that at the highest levels.
Yeah, but
if you
like that's sort of
Olivier,
limited deal.
the results are limited based on the athleticism of the fighter implementing it.
I suppose.
If you
but
have
like,
a hyper athlete who is a B plus to A minus striker, wrestler, grappler, cage offense and defense, etc., 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 or whatever it is, and is also a really hyper athlete, they're going to be able to do everything well everywhere. They're going to succeed. That's why we see the limitations of people like Rory McDonald or Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Aubin-Mercier looks fantastic, honestly, these days in a lot of ways, and it's mostly his athleticism that's limiting him, I would say, because he keeps getting better in all the areas that he started more as a grappler. His striking has really come along, and he actually lost his last fight because he kept engaging in a grappling match that he was losing. And who did he lose to? A hyper athlete. If you remember, I don't remember the guy's name exactly, but he was like a 22-year-old.
Arman Saryukin.
Correct. The 22-year-old hyper athlete was getting fucked up on the feet.
The 22-year-old.
Yeah, he was getting fucked up on the feet by Aubin-Mercier and would have lost the fight if Aubin-Mercier wasn't a dumbass who kept engaging in the grappling with him.
Yeah, but like his style is based around grappling. That's why I said
that's what I'm
just
saying.
about how style matches play up. There's usually limitations to how far that can take you.
But
because you'll always be sort of.
Well, let's put it this way: if Aubin-Mercier did not make the fight IQ error, which I was raging about at the time, of willingly engaging in that grappling match,
You're still raging about it.
I'm so angry about that because I really actually like OAM. So I was really mad that he did this to himself because he would have won that fight. It wasn't his style that was the problem. It wasn't his skills that were the issue. It was his fight IQ. We haven't seen that kind of fight IQ. That's what's crazy to me is that he's a TriStar guy. And if one thing is, they generally don't make terrible in-fight decisions. So I was very confused. So I hope Faraz kind of shat on him for it later. But like, you see Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen's really coming together in his last fight, last couple of fights. GSP is an example of, I think, the hyper athlete.
No, don't bring up GSP because
Why?
Like that guy was not just a hyper athlete, but like he picked up wrestling and grappling really quickly.
But
It's
again,
a genius.
But again, the guy was the epitome of an all-round fighter. I'm sorry, like that was him. He had an excellent jab. He had good range tools, good footwork and movement on the outside in particular. Not necessarily a pocket striker, obviously, but although weirdly enough, the best pocket boxing he's displayed was against Michael Bisping, which is just amusing as hell. But
yeah, but he had one eye. Like we have to look at it from the context of having one eye.
Bisping did have one eye, but no, I mean like the actual skills GSP used.
Well.
So
yeah,
what I'm saying is that when you take a hyper athlete and you generate them into an all-rounder who's solid everywhere, I don't think there's a real argument against that. And I think that athleticism is kind of the key in pretty much every. And when it comes down to athleticism, is the key because you can teach any fighter all the greatest skills you can. If they don't have the athleticism to pull it off against other fighters, then it doesn't really matter. Like you could still be successful because you're more skilled and more technically proficient and shut down athletes who don't have enough skill. But at some point, athleticism just takes over. We know that. We've seen it 1,000 times.
Do you think that GSP, let's assume in his prime because he's not in his prime anymore. If he had fought Khabib at 170, GSP should clown him then.
He
all
would
right?
clown him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
GSP would murder Khabib at
Like,
170 in his prime. Like, not murder. Like, obviously, he
yeah.
wouldn't murder him. He would
No, I mean, there will
on
be difficulties, but
GSP in his prime, I would
Yeah,
still
he-
pick over Usman. I think he just
Yeah.
outstrikes him
Yeah.
for 5 rounds.
I mean, he would jab him to the.
I think he would just outstrike him for 5 rounds. Prime GSP, I think would outstrike. Maybe I'm like underestimating the size difference because Usman is an absolute monster.
He was
but-
very large.
Like Johnny Hendricks, like GSP was able to hold his own against roided Hendricks, and that version of Hendricks was listen. That version of Hendricks might have been the single best welterweight on the planet of all time.
Yeah.
I feel very
Yeah.
comfortable saying that. Like that was that single performance was unbelievable. And I
Yeah,
don't
do you
feel like
remember?
I feel like Hendricks loses the respect of a ton of people because of his, decline.
Shenanigans.
Airline.
His decline, he really. But for that stretch of time where he was just basically either wrecking fools or having a split decision with Koscheck, which he probably should have lost, and then going from that to just beating the shit out of GSP, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, he won that fight.
Yeah, man, like.
But I
Well,
don't feel
like,
bad about losing.
And he had put
To
it
be
all
honest,
together.
I am sort of, if you're gonna talk hypotheticals, I am sort of curious about how GSP would fare in like the new high-paced environment. Because before, people are touting like Condit and Big Diaz, but nowadays their pace is sort of just average. So that might be interesting. But
What?
like GSP still has a ton of ancillary skills, so
I'm currently working on an actual statistical piece to see if that's actually true that we've seen a significant rise in the volume and output of fighters over time. So I'll let you know how that goes. It's taking forever to calculate the statistics because it's fucking not normal how many fights they've put on, how many events.
Where are you getting it from? Like, where are you getting the data?
Fight metric.
Oh man, no, then you can't. No, I would you can use what's the name, scraping to get the data immediately.
I don't know how to do that, and if I can't, I think someone tried and it's not easy.
Yeah, that's the problem with fighting.
It would have been done already if it was that easy.
Yeah, I guess.
That's why I think that's why I have to do. And I'm not just doing I could do significant strikes landed, but that's kind of stupid. So I'm actually doing significant strikes thrown, significant strikes landed, total strikes thrown, total strikes landed.
Just focus on the total strikes because significant strikes are.
Well, I'm comparing. It's going to be a comparison. I just want to see if they kind of match up consistently. I'm curious. I'm also gonna calculate the amount of finishes that we've seen in those years as well, both by submission and by knockout, to see if that changed, and also because and I'm gonna obviously calculate how many fights there were as well, or how many events there were, and I'll just quickly calculate how many fights there were per year to see if any of these factors saw a significant change either. Because if we see a ton more finishes in more recent years, but there's still a higher volume overall, which means fights are ending earlier, but there's still at least an equal or greater amount thrown and landed, I think that does show, or not a correlation, I would say that implies from those statistics that we would have seen a rise in the volume, even if we're seeing fights finished earlier. You know what I mean?
yeah, I think it might be better to look at strikes thrown per minute.
Well, I don't have
On
that. I will say this, Bilal, that would be so fucking hard to calculate.
Because nobody's tracking that.
Calculate how many minutes of fighting there were in the year.
Yeah.
The best thing I can do is calculate rounds. Then we're talking about something a lot easier. But even that would just be still a lot of math. I
No,
would.
you can
That's
get
fight
that
made
from
for
Sherdog.
I'm not. Listen, I started from 2015, and I've only gotten about 2/3 through 2016 because I work. Like it's very hard for me to
Yeah.
sit just
No, like
adding.
when the fight ends, like no, but I mean it's a massive project because you can go to Sherdog and you can actually scrape data from there, and it tells you when the round ended, like at least the fight in the fight clock, right? Like the
But again, that
official
doesn't.
ending.
But I would have to do that for legitimately thousands of fights.
Well, that's what scraping is for. Man, I tried to scrape the Sherdog database. The shit was massive. Like I didn't even get close.
Okay,
Are you
so
fucking
yeah,
canceled?
I don't know how to do it. Maybe I'll do it. But anyway, I think
I think
GSP
you
would
might
still
need Al's help with that though.
maybe. But I will say this: going back to the GSP thing, I think he would do more than fine in this environment. I'm sorry.
No, he would.
No,
I
yeah,
agree.
I think he would still be.
like
I mean,
he's
if you look at the welterweight rankings, honestly, who's beating him consistently based on what we know?
Only Usman
Colby
and
Covington.
yeah.
I don't think Covington beats him at all.
No, I don't think so.
I
No,
don't
I
think.
mean it's
I
funny
think
because
Covington would
GSP
actually get out
became
wrestled. I think Covington would get out wrestled pretty badly by GSP.
Yeah, he would. If
probably.
RDA was getting in on his hips, GSP is gonna do the same.
Leon Edwards, if he can stop the wrestling consistently, might give GSP issues just because of his clinch work. He's really good in the clinch, like really
Yeah,
good. As a strike,
but I don't know, man. Like GSP seems to be built entirely around his jab, and if you got around it, he just had that shit of like. I don't think he wouldn't have like. It would be very hard for me to conceive like GSP not having like a very specific tool to deal with that inside work that Edwards does.
the question is, I really, I mean, honestly, I think we all know the question comes down very straightforward to if he could take Leon Edwards down consistently.
Yeah,
My
yes, he can.
Yeah, like okay, Usman. I think he would beat him with outstrike him on the feet. At least current Usman. Now Tyron Woodley would get fucked up.
Although no,
Yeah.
Usman is interesting because like he's up from what I've heard, his wrestling career has been him counter wrestling, which could be interesting if GSP ever tries shooting it on it, especially given how dangerous he is in the clinch and once he gets control.
Yes, but
yeah,
assuming that works,
I think
assuming
Usman
that,
and Woodley are probably the most interesting fights.
but assuming that works, like like we know how the Woodley fight would go because we've got like a preview kind of of when he fought Rory and it didn't work very well for Woodley. But except GSP would hurt him, and if he's fighting Usman, and let's assume that Usman stops his shot, like he still has to fight GSP on the feet.
No, it's not about stuff shot. The thing with counter wrestling is that, again, from what I can understand, seeing some wrestlers who moved over to MMA, is that they do really well when someone shoots in on them.
Who said
by
GSP would shoot?
extending.
We've seen GSP
Well, like,
just fight wrestlers for 5 rounds on the feet multiple times. And
No, but
let's
I'm
be
saying that's
realistic
why
here.
it's
The
interesting to be
footwork,
shot.
the movement of GSP would give Usman some serious issues.
It would.
And that jab and the jab, because his reach is also really like I think Usman only has like a few inches of reach on him, despite the height.
That's kind of massive soul, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying it'd be interesting having that tool taken away because, like, we saw against Hendricks also that GSP's game functions the best when every part works together. And when Hendricks eliminated
But that
the
was not
threat of
prime
wrestling,
GSP. We're talking about prime. Prime GSP
Fair
doesn't
enough.
look. The prime GSP
No,
was
no.
not. But we're
Fair
talking
enough.
about
I just look.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not going to favor Usman, especially with how GSP is on the feet. But like, it's still probably the most interesting fight.
For sure, absolutely. And then there's Tyron Woodley, who would no. It's basically a more athletic cost check.
Yeah.
Then we have Masvidal.
Okay, who
Masvidal
wins?
with Masvidal with Colby. We already said that GSP would out wrestle him. We think Masvidal, I think, gets out wrestled again.
Yeah.
Leon Edwards, same thing. I think he just gets out wrestled. RDA gets out wrestled. Maya gets outstruck. Thompson would actually be interesting.
Yeah, GSP lauded him as the best striker he had ever trained.
Yeah, but I also think he gets out wrestled.
Yeah.
Nate
Well,
Diaz
I have no doubt.
is ranked number 8.
Oh my God.
And Anthony Pettis is number 9. So Diaz and
He's
Pettis
really
by
got
submission.
To be honest, like now that I think about it, I wouldn't be surprised if GSP outstruck Thompson. Just because, like, I know Thompson's footwork is really tricky to track down, and he makes really good reads. But like, the dude has he ever had an answer to a jab? Like,
No.
shown a consistent.
No, he actually
answer
has,
to a
and
jab.
his head is like straight up when he does those charging combinations.
Yeah.
So I think GSP would just run circles around him in that sense. Also, he would get taken down when he does those blitzes.
Yeah.
Like GSP would just blast double him as soon as Thompson even attempted one, like the first one. All right, we'll round out the rest of the division real quick because I actually have to go. Robbie Lawler, oy vey. Jeff Neal, I would say I would be more interested in like if we saw 2 more fights out of him, but as he is now, Jeff Neal probably I would pick to lose. But I think Jeff Neal is.
Wait. I think this is about outside the rankings, but Michel Pereira.
No, Michel Pereira has been out wrestled.
I love
Does
him.
GSP have an answer to backflips? Is the real question.
Oh, you Michel Pereira. Oh God, first of all, I thought you were talking about
Michel Pereira?
Yeah. You're talking about Michel Pereira, not Pereira.
Yes.
Pereira is the
No,
guy.
I know. It's Pereira because he's
Pereira. I'm sure GSP has an answer to backflips.
He's fighting Diego now. I'm
yeah.
Pereira.
So we got Jeff Neal, Vicente Luque, Gilbert Burns, Neil Magny, and Li Jingling. Yeah, I think GSP beats all of them in their current incarnations. Okay, so we're basically saying GSP would be title holder again. Awesome. Great stuff, guys.
So much fun.
To be fair, like out of all the old fighters, he probably has the most modern game.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
I mean, his game is like objectively more modern than even like it's just that
Thompson.
Jones is at light heavyweight.
But yeah, Jones sucks. Okay. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Thank you all so much for joining us. I've been your host, Ben Cohn. We had Alejandro and Bilal this time. Guys, anything you'd like to say before we go?
Buy Ben's meat.
Yes, please buy my meat. Buy my meat and love me. Love me. Love me like you love me. Yeah.
Give Ben validation.
Validate me. I need it.
Yes.
I need this.